When we think of wars, we often imagine years of fighting, long campaigns, and countless battles. However, history holds an unusual record. The shortest war ever fought lasted only 38 to 45 minutes. This remarkable event is known as the Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896. The conflict began on August 27, 1896, in Zanzibar, an island off the coast of East Africa. At the time, Zanzibar was a strategically important territory, and the British Empire had a strong influence there. When the pro-British Sultan, Khalid bin Barghash, died suddenly, his cousin, Sultan Khalid bin Barghash, took power without British approval. The British authorities, determined to maintain control, ordered him to step down. Khalid refused and instead fortified himself inside the royal palace with about 3,000 supporters. In response, the British gave him an ultimatum to surrender by 9 a.m. on August 27th. When the deadline passed without compliance, the British Navy, waiting in the harbor with modern warships, opened fire on the palace. Within minutes, the bombardment set the palace ablaze. Khalid fled to the German consulate, while his forces were quickly overwhelmed. By the end of the attack, lasting less than an hour, about 500 of the Sultan's men were dead or wounded, while the British suffered only one casualty. The war was officially declared over in under 45 minutes, making it the shortest recorded war in history. Afterward, a new sultan favorable to British interests was installed, and the incident became a striking example of imperial power in the late 19th century. Though brief, the Anglo-Zanzibar War demonstrates the vast imbalance between European empires and smaller states during the colonial era. It reminds us that history is not only shaped by long, drawn-out struggles, but also by astonishingly quick events that left lasting impacts. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to look at what may be the shortest war in human history. But before we jump into the video, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Also hit the notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload a new video. And lastly, please consider supporting us through various platforms. Your support helps us to continue producing quality content. Now, let's dive into today's topic. Let's start with a little background. During the 19th century, Zanzibar was a key player in the trade of ivory and cloves. Its strategic location on the Swahili coast made it a vital stop for European ships traveling to and from Asia. As the scramble for Africa intensified, the British and Germans competed for influence in the region. The small island became a pawn in their larger imperial game. In 1890, the British and the Sultan of Zanzibar signed a treaty establishing a British protectorate. This meant that while Zanzibar nominally remained a sovereign state, its foreign policy and defense were under British control. This arrangement was beneficial to the British, who gained access to Zanzibar's strategic port and its lucrative trade. For the Zanzibars, it provided a measure of protection against other European powers, particularly the Germans, who were increasingly encroaching on East Africa. Fast forward to 1896, the reigning Sultan, Khalid bin Barghash, a pro-British leader, fell ill and died unexpectedly. His cousin, Khalid bin Barghash, who had been out of the country at the time of the Sultan's death, returned to Zanzibar and seized the throne. He did this without informing the British, and in defiance of the wishes of the British Consul General, Sir Lloyd Matthews, who had hoped that another candidate would be chosen. The British were caught off guard and annoyed by this turn of events. They had expected to have a say in the selection of the next sultan, given their influence in the region. Khalid's actions were seen as a breach of the 1890 treaty and an affront to British prestige. To make matters worse, Khalid was not viewed favorably by the British. He had a reputation for being unpredictable, ambitious, and potentially dangerous to British interests. In fact, he had once been exiled from Zanzibar at the request of the British because of his rebellious behavior. The British felt compelled to take action to reassert their authority in Zanzibar and prevent potential threats to their empire. Thus began a diplomatic battle between Britain and Sultan Khalid. The British demanded that the Sultan abdicate in favor of another candidate acceptable to them. Khalid refused, citing both personal ambition and a sense of entitlement. He argued that as his cousin and next of kin, he had a legitimate claim to the throne. Additionally, he pointed out that the British had previously recognized his right to rule when he served as the nominal sultan during his exile. As negotiations between Britain and Sultan Khalid reached a stalemate, the British decided to take a more aggressive approach. On August 25th, they delivered an ultimatum to Khalid, giving him 2 days to step down. When he rejected the ultimatum, the British began military preparations. 2 British warships, the HMS Raccoon and the HMS St. George, entered Zanzibar harbor and took up positions off the coast of the Royal Palace. On the morning of August 27th, the British ultimatum expired. At 9 a.m. precisely, the HMS Rattlesnake opened fire on the palace, followed closely by the HMS St. George. The palace was engulfed in flames within minutes, sending thick black smoke billowing into the air. The Sultan's forces, taken by surprise and vastly outnumbered, were unable to mount an effective defense. They were armed with old muzzle-loading rifles and cannons, while the British ships boasted modern guns with rapid-fire capabilities. Additionally, the British had the advantage of naval artillery, which allowed them to bombard the palace from a distance. The Zanzibari defenders were trapped inside the palace with limited means of escape. Many were killed or wounded by the heavy gunfire. Some attempted to flee across the palace grounds, only to be cut down by British bullets. Others sought refuge in the palace gardens, which soon became a scene of carnage. Amidst the chaos and destruction, Sultan Khalid escaped to the German consulate, hoping for asylum. However, the British ultimatum had specifically warned against any interference from foreign powers. When the German consul persisted, the British bombarded the consulate as well. Faced with imminent capture, Khalid surrendered, ending the conflict after just 38 to 45 minutes. The Anglo-Zanzibar War claimed the lives of around 500 Zanzibari soldiers, while the British suffered no casualties. 1 British sailor was injured during the bombardment. With the war over, the British occupied the palace and installed a new sultan, Hamad bin Muhammad, who was more amenable to British interests. Zanzibar remained a British protectorate until 1963, when it gained independence. The swift and decisive nature of the Anglo-Zanzibar War was a testament to the stark contrast in military capabilities between European powers and African states during the colonial era. The British, with their advanced weaponry and superior naval firepower, easily overwhelmed the Sultan's forces. The war was not just a display of military might, but also of imperial arrogance and disregard for local sovereignty. The British ultimatum in the bombardment of the palace and the German consulate demonstrate the hauteur with which colonial powers treated African rulers. The war remains a powerful symbol of the imbalances of power that characterized the colonial period. Several factors contributed to the brevity of the Anglo-Zanzibar War. First and foremost, the disparity in military technology was immense. The British ships were equipped with modern guns that could fire multiple rounds per minute, while the Sultan's forces relied on outdated muzzle-loading weapons. Secondly, the British had a clear strategic objective: the removal of Sultan Khalid and the installation of a more compliant ruler. They were prepared to act swiftly and decisively to achieve this goal. The Sultan, on the other hand, lacked the resources and the support to mount an effective defense. His forces were poorly equipped and outnumbered. Finally, the war took place in a confined area around the royal palace. The British ships dominated the coastal waters, limiting the Sultan's ability to maneuver or seek assistance from neighboring areas. This concentration of forces and activities made it virtually impossible for the Sultan to sustain a prolonged conflict. In conclusion, the Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896 stands as a remarkable event in history for its sheer brevity. The conflict, lasting only from 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. on August 27, 1896, is officially recognized as the shortest war on record. The war not only showcases the vast military superiority of the British Empire over the Sultanate of Zanzibar, but also offers a glimpse into the dynamics of the colonial era. The conflict demonstrates how European powers asserted their dominance over African territories, and the lengths to which they went to maintain control. The story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War is a reminder of the complex legacy of colonialism and its impact on world history. We hope you enjoyed learning about the Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896. If you did, please leave us a like and share it with your friends. We also have plenty of other videos for you to watch and learn from. Thanks for watching.